Hope you've been toning those muscles because it's time to flex them off at the card pool. I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And today we're looking at part 3 from Shadowmoor. This is going to be the money card section of those expensive cards.
Indeed it is, and if you want to take a look back at some of our more hidden gems of the set, you can go back in our previous 2 videos where we talked about those. And next up, we'll be talking about the impact of the set overall and focusing on some more general things. But for now, let's look at the most valuable cards here. So, Stu, take it away.
I'm talking about the first one. I called dibs on it because I got you this card for your birthday.
You did indeed. A very good gift.
I hope, yeah, because it went up in price after I did that. It's called Greater Aromancy. It costs 34 bucks around about at this point.
Yeah.
For an enchantment that costs 2 mana. 1 generic and a white, and it reads reads other enchantments you control have Shroud. And enchanted creatures you control have Shroud as well. So in that case, if anything has an R on it, it also will have Shroud as well, which is a built-in, Lightning Greaves for free for this card?
It's pretty good, yeah.
It's so good, it's so powerful, works in specific decks, meaning that if you're running an Enchantress build, it is really strong, or just happen to be using a kind of like aggro Voltron deck that's all about auras, more or less.
Like Saram, for example,
that's
works
very,
very nicely for this. Yeah,
it's so good for what it does. It's so low costed.
Yeah, and admittedly, this doesn't do anything the minute it enters the battlefield, sure, but it's going to give you so many other advantages over the course of the game, and it's going to make things so hard for other players. They're going to basically have to get rid of this before they get rid of anything else that you have, which is kind of crazy, really.
Well, and this also only gets better as time has gone on, because now we have enchantment creatures ever since we had our fun at the...
even better.
Yeah, and they can also... Helii goes ahead and creates enchantment creatures, and we also had our own branch of enchantment creatures that weren't gods, but you can still use those as your commander because they're legendary, so it only helps more strategies now.
The only strike against this card is that you kind of have to be careful when and how you use it, because once you enchant something and then it gains Shroud, you can't enchant it with any more things, so...
It's like giving something protection from colors. Yeah, you gotta watch it how you pretty much go about it, but either way, it's super good. It's only gotten better with time, and it's until it gets reprinted, it's only going up too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't ever see this getting reprinted, but I could be wrong. We'll see.
Modern Master set or something like that. We'll see. But anyway, on to number 2. Oh, I kind of wanted this one, but all right, go for it, Kyle. Take it.
All right. Well, number 2 on our list here for $32 is Mana Reflection, another enchantment, a green one this time. It costs 6, 4 colorless and 2 green, and says if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces twice as much of that mana instead. Now, you may look at this and ask, what makes this better than Mirari's Wake, which costs less and does more, or Zendikar Resurgent, which costs more, but also kind of does more?
Yeah.
Now, there are 2 things that make it better. It says it produces twice as much mana. All those are an additional mana. So, if it produced 3 mana, you only get 1 more. With this, if it produced 3, you get 6.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal all by itself, but also it's not just lands like the vast majority of the other cards that do this kind of thing. It's a permanent. If it's a creature, if it's a mana rock, if it's an enchantment somehow that gives you
Ring
mana,
alone is now
4 mana.
Bonkers.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why this card is so much money, because this covers things in a way that no other card does.
Yeah, Temple of the False God does 4. Cabal Coffers does ridiculous amounts of mana.
Yeah.
And inherently, if you have something like a doubling cube out there, that it's more mana on more mana. You're squaring your mana right there.
There's just so much math, I don't even want to think about it. But yeah,
it's so good for what it does, and this has never been reprinted. This is also part of a cycle of reflection cards that are in all the different colors. But this is by far...
the best one?
The best one.
Yeah, obviously.
The priciest one, but it also makes sense because it's green, and green needs more for that regalness, you know?
Well, it certainly is a very, very strong card.
This is double mint the card, pretty much, but yeah. Well, going on to number 3. Hey, this actually did work out. I get a card that I like as well.
You do.
Number 3, for 31 bucks, we have Rise the Redeemed, which is a 1-drop commander in the Selesnya colors. It is an elf warrior with a 1/1 body with 2 amazing effects. Let me elaborate. For 3 mana, 2 in a Selesnya hybrid, you can go ahead and tap this to put a 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature token into play. Or for 6 mana, 4 generic and double hybrid of Selesnya, you can tap this for each creature token you control. Put a token into play that's a copy of that creature.
In case you hadn't figured it out, this is Stu's favorite deck right here.
This is one of my decks I really loved, and if you actually would like to take a look at it, well, this will be a good segue. We'll put it down in the description of a link on our Tapped Out account for this deck.
You can see it there.
I have a little bit of a different variant. It's Super Friends, but that's because it's the supreme way to go. But anyway, we'll get into that in a little bit. This is probably one of the best commanders you can have for being low cost, and any one-drop commander you can bring out usually has a competitive edge there for that alone. But both of these effects are really good. Not only does this generate tokens and bring them up onto the field like a lot of other commanders do, it can also multiply your field, not just for the tokens it produced, but for any. And there are so many tokens you can create in these colors.
Yeah, the only downside is it is creature tokens, so you can't double treasures or clues or anything
or
like
emblems.
that. But you know, whatever. This is still a really great ability. This is pretty much the token commander. So there are a couple other commanders that are good that make tokens, but this one is
Gave
the one.
Would be one that people would contest you with.
That one's pretty good too, but I think Rise was kind of the original one that made token commander decks a thing.
Yeah, before commander was truly a thing.
Yeah, and it is such a good tribe too. Elves, I mean, come on, there's so much awesome support
Oh,
there.
I thought it was the Warriors that was the thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some decent stuff for that too now, but yeah, this is definitely a great commander option and one that many people use. It's very popular, hence why it's still so expensive.
Yeah, it never been reprinted. It's just one of the ones it's like once it comes out, it can keep coming out because typically for 3 mana, all right, now I got to pay 5. Well, that's me letting this thing die twice. This isn't a commander to use if you're going to try to win by commander damage.
No.
Although when you do get that, it feels fantastic, and I'm never letting him forget when I've done that, so, which is great.
It happened.
You can do so many different things with this. This can be a card of the 99. This can be the commander itself, but it really shines in the front.
Yeah, it's good. It's awesome. Let's move on.
Move on from there. So number 4, right. Kyle, make it rain.
All right. Well, for number 4, a bunch of cards kind of rolled into one here. We're talking about the Shadowmoor filter lands. So, for example, there are 5 of them in the allied color pairs. Let's take a look at Sunken Ruins here. They all do the same thing, which is they tap to give you 1 colorless mana. They come into play untapped, which is pretty nice. Also, for a hybrid cost of whatever the ally color pair is, in this case it's blue-black, you can then tap it too, so that's tapping 2 lands basically, to give you 2 mana in any combination of those allied colors. So you can get 2 blue, a blue and a black, or you can get 2 black. And it's pretty much the same for all of these. Honestly, these cards range from about $25 at the high end to about $15 at the low end, and there's a reason why they've stayed so valuable, is because this is probably one of the best instances of color fixing on lands that has ever been printed.
Easily. The thing that's problems with like the filter lands where you see with things like Unknown Shores, for example, is that you lose 1 mana in the process of the
Right, you're
transfer.
spending 2 to get 1.
But now if you have a specific color, you can go ahead and have more specific colors. So it's almost a little bit more niche because you can't use 1 generic for it. But I'd rather not always be faulted 1 mana for it. So these are really great. They've been printed forever ago. They were even in Future Sight. So these are things that have come along being a necessity in the game, especially in Commander. These are things that you almost see as common as the dual lands just for what they do.
Oh yeah, these are great. And there are also some like really old lands that sort of did similar things, except they basically tap themselves and 1 mana to make the color pair, but they didn't even make mana by themselves. These could just make you 1 colorless just because.
Yeah,
so
they're so good.
Yeah, they're just great.
And you've probably seen them before. They're not something that have been new to the game. It just goes with the whole mana fixing of Shadowmoor, since all you need is 1 mana for that complicated symbol right there. So it fit to the flavor of the set. It made
they're
sense
great,
for the
and they will
reprint.
continue to be great. The end.
Well, moving on to number 5, this is another card that is completely awesome, and it is called Prismatic Omen, and it will come in at around $24 for your wallet, for an enchantment that costs 2 mana, 1 generic and a green, and it reads, lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So this is pretty much your other option to Chromatic Lantern.
Yeah, and there's a debate as to which one is better.
Well, this one has to be in a green deck where Chromatic can go into anyone. It can also net you mana, but this one can come out sooner potentially, and it also makes it so that they're every basic land as opposed to there's stuff with layers if you have Blood Moon coming out and stuff like this and yada yada yada. So it's something that, again, it's color facing at its finest, low costed, and the fact that they're basic land types makes them better and worse. Landwalk you're now more susceptible to, but also, again, you're more safe from certain kinds of land destruction that only target non-basic lands.
Right.
So it works.
I would rather have a Chromatic Lantern because not only does it kind of do the same thing without some of the negative side effects, but it also just gives you a mana by itself, which this does not. But still, this turns on things like Domain and Converge, which care about color and the kinds of lands you have, and also things like Cabal Coffers. Like, this is an Urborg that's not an Urborg.
It's an Urborg, but not an Urborg because it works for just you and nobody else. And there's certain things where it's like when things enter, sacrifice this or whatever. Like there's those lands where it's like you sacrifice a plains, and you can go ahead and create like, all right, this thing that also creates the tokens. I forget the names of those, but it makes it so you can have more options quicker. And again, for Chromatic Lantern being around $7, this is a little over 3 times the price.
Yeah, and there are reasons for it because making lands all land types can be very good.
Can be way better.
Yeah.
So take note of it if you've never seen it before. It is a card. That is a card.
Yeah. And this was one of those rares that I got when I was back,
we drafted
picking up Shadowmoor packs, and I was like, well, this is crap. And I've been proven wrong, of course, over time. So.
This is one of the sets I'm very thrilled that when I first came in to play Magic to this set, and so we would go ahead and we'd go to our local game store and we would draft because I was just trying to figure out everything. So this is one of the ones where I'm so glad I just rare drafted and just took in all these cards because now they're gold. They are
many of them,
and that helps grow a collection if you don't have that stuff. So I can always thank him for really keeping an eye out.
Well, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Number 6, moving on here in our countdown, we're going to a card called Wound Reflection. Now, it's another one of this reflection cycle of enchantments. $21 for this one. It's the black version. It costs 5 and 1 black for 6 mana total. At the end of each turn, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. This is a very powerful inclusion to usually black decks, but any kinds of decks that can manipulate life totals, or just aggressive decks with black in them that like to dish out lots of damage in one turn, because it's not just damage, it's any loss of life at all. So one of the coolest things about this is one of those cards that can, out of nowhere, win the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have the right stuff set up.
There's a lot of ways to do it, yeah.
Well, this is something I love seeing typically in Rakdos because they all have no problems going chaotic and like pinging you for 3. Well, that 3 is 6 now. Or like, not Neheb, who's Heartless Hidegetsu with this?
Yeah, well, there's a number of cards like this and the new legend from Dominaria, Torgar, where they basically cut your life total in half by being played, and if this isn't play, oh, you just lost. Whoops.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how this works.
Now, things that set a life total like Sorin won't work with this, more or less, because you create their life total to being 10, or like Magister Sphinx.
Not true, actually. You would
think that. There we go.
You would think that, but it's not true. I actually looked it up before this video, but when you have a card that says, target player's life total becomes whatever, that it's actually, there is considered, if you have to, go up or down life, that is considered gaining or loss of life. So, yeah, a Sorin or a Magister Sphinx combined with this can kill somebody.
Now you know.
Yeah, that's actually true, yeah.
That's, well, that screw every note that I wrote down. Now, I'm thrilled with that alone. Let's move on. But yeah, it's another one of the doubler ones. Each color has their own, like we said. It's just in black. I just kind of wished it was in red. That's the only thing I really wish I kind of saw.
Yeah, well, Red got a crappy one. Ooh, all creatures have double strike for 6 mana.
Yeah, that one's not on our list, I'm pretty sure. But this one, this one should have been red, and I kind of wish the red one get something else to black.
Yeah, I know.
Like I don't know what else to do for that one, but yeah, you rarely see this again because this is an expensive card printed once. It's in decks, but I mean, I've never played against somebody who's used this.
Yeah, no, not really. Not so much.
But moving on to number 7.
All right, and this one is, again, not really a commander card, but this is definitely a competitive staple. It's
Yes.
Manamorphose at number 7, and it costs $19 or thereabouts right now. It's an instant, a green and red one that costs 1 mana, colorless, and also 1 green or red. You add 2 mana and any combination of colors to your mana pool and draw a card. Now, you look at this, and basically on the face of it, it gives you 2 mana for 2 mana and a card to replace itself. So it's basically like you did nothing by playing this card, really.
Almost.
But, this is probably one of the best ingredients for a Storm deck that has ever been printed, simply because you played it for nothing, and you got advantage out of it. It
alters
replaced
nothing that's
itself.
happened. Yeah,
exactly. It just gives you more mana and fixes your mana. That's whatever you want, which is pretty great as long as you have red or green to start with.
These are some of the cards I traded away way early along, and I kind of wish I still had some.
Yeah, I had like 4 of these at one time, and I got rid of them because I thought
Like
they were
$5.
garbage.
I was like, yeah, I'll take $5 for these. That adds up to one of those. Now.
Yeah, it's crazy because like this is, like I said, pretty bland.
And this has been reprinted, and it's still $20.
Yeah, pretty bland in Commander, but in Modern and Beyond, a key card in all competitive Storm decks. It's a free draw, fixes your mana, adds the Storm count. That's all really you want. It's the perfect card.
This can see place in Commander. Now, I always say Isochron Scepter in this case, and that is true. It's a free 2 mana
and drawing a
card.
Sure.
But fixing mana sometimes is a problem for certain decks, depending on what your mana curve is, if you can tutor. But I mean, you are in green in this case, so I can't really see it being too viable in that realm. If you're running 4 colors, sure. Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. I still wouldn't probably do it, but you know,
to each their own. Yeah, if you're doing Spellslinger, this could work for Riku of the Twin Reflections.
It could.
Just for that, if that is a Storm deck, or it can go for creature based, whatever. This could go in that, but either way, I digress, and we'll go on to number 8.
Yeah, and this is much more interesting.
Yeah, this one, going back into the enchantment train, for $18, we're talking about Enchanted Evening, which is a regular date night for Kyle and ourselves. It is an enchantment that costs 5 mana, 3 and double hybrid of the Azorius, meaning both white and blue. And it reads, all permanents are enchantments in addition to their other types. So you can see what they were already thinking with the card prior.
Yeah.
So this can help. Now, this is one of those cards that used to piss off judges because of layering, like which one's first. If like with Mitosyn's Lattice out, making everything into an artifact, and this will be an enchantment, which one has precedence? So this can make stuff more vulnerable. It can make stuff stronger depending on what the type it is.
Yeah.
Typically, enchantments have a harder time getting removaled outside of green for all the colors, so it can sometimes be a benefit in that realm. It depends on what your play style is, what are your synergies. It's not common you see a tri-colored Enchantress deck because you need the blue.
Yeah, it's really weird, this card, because generally you think of Enchantress strategies as green-white rather than blue-white.
Yes.
So yeah, and so this card being a blue-white one is kind of like, huh?
It's offset pretty much. It gives the color pie something more to work with. I mean, if you're not in Commander, you can go ahead and use this in mono-white, truly. But, you know, it has its own plays. It's powerful and unique in its own way. It works, but, I mean, truly, take it for what you want. If you will go ahead, the best thing that you can truly do is when you animate all enchantments, you can go ahead and destroy stuff that is on your opponent's side, lands, any utility they have.
Yeah, very, very interesting. It reminds me of Mycosynth Lattice a lot because they both change blanket types of all things in play to a certain type. Mycosynth Lattice is a little bit better because artifacts are a little more relevant to the game than enchantments are in general.
But more vulnerable, too.
But yes, indeed, more vulnerable. But something like playing this and then somebody fracturing Gusts, that's just sad. It's just going to be really sad for everybody.
If only it was in green, the full potential of this card could truly be something.
Yeah, but there are Bant Enchantress decks. There's a couple commanders that can work with that. So who knows? Maybe this is good. I don't know. It's one of those weird cards that's kind of up in the air.
Well, it's an enchantment, so it's on the ground. But
yeah,
either way. But number 9, thank you, Kyle.
All right. Well, number 9 for the set at the price of $15 is another enchantment, Polluted Bonds, and it's another black card, 3 colorless, 2 black for a total of 5. Mana cost. Whenever a land comes into play under an opponent's control, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. There's nothing real flashy here, and I honestly don't know why this stays a money card necessarily, but it's a pretty good ingredient in a lot of different Punisher strategies. Group Slug that you see usually with like red-black decks, they like to do that hit all players kind of thing, usually hurt yourself
Like a
too.
group tax kind of style.
This is one of the better ones because it doesn't actually hurt you, it just hurts your opponents, but whenever they play a land, losing some life, gaining some life, I don't know.
For
People can
5
play
mana,
around that.
Yeah, you would typically want this early when like the fetches are being cracked and stuff like that. That's a 2/4. So like again, all right, play your fetch. That's 1. Crack the fetch. That's 2.
Right.
Or any kind of. The only thing this would really hurt is a landfall deck.
Yeah. The argument against this though is like there are things in this game that tax people for things they just naturally want to do, and playing lands is one of them. So maybe this makes people rethink playing their own lands, and that helps you over the course of the game.
I would rather pay the lands.
I don't know. But it may not seem that powerful at first, but eventually I think it has the potential to take over a game just from the accumulated loss and gain.
It would just be funny is like if your life total is so low and you're only drawing lands for top deck, you're like, I have a hand, 7 cards in my hand, all lands. Yeah. And I can't play a single thing.
So I don't know how likely that is though.
Well, if you really want to crush someone's spirit, yeah. Do that. Demoralize them. Make them a pulp in your hands.
Yeah, I mean it's all right. It's just not. It's not the best card in this kind of vein.
I mean, it works for something. It's $15.
I guess. Like, if someone can figure out why, let me know.
Well, Google. You know what? Ask Jeeves. I bet he knows.
Speaking of lands, though, I think our last card has something to do with
that, too. Yes, it does. Now, this is a classic card. It is, at number 10, we have Fulminator Mage. Yes. It costs $14. $14. 14 mana would be ridiculous for it. It is 3-drop for 1 generic and double hybrid in the Rakdos, 1 red and 1 black for an elemental shaman with a 2/2 body. And it reads, you can sacrifice this creature to destroy target non-basic land. So this is something where, again, what we were saying with Prismatic Omen, that could save you against this card.
Yeah, I mean, this is another staple competitive card. You see it everywhere in Modern and Legacy and all of that. Gets rid of any problem land, provides a decent body too. That's pretty much all you need to make this card good on its own.
And it doesn't replace the land, and also the fact that it's not an ETB is what makes it stronger, because if they don't have one, but you need a board presence, you can go ahead and bring this out as a board presence and wait for the right moment to remove it. You disincentivize them from playing certain things, which is also very strong in Magic.
Yeah, instant speed sacrifice at any time, pretty solid. Gets rid of a lot of problem lands that you see, like the Urzatron lands, Eldrazi lands, all that silly stuff.
Any
that people
mana
play.
boosting, anything.
Gaia's Cradle, all that.
Glacial Chasm,
nonsense.
that's also one that kind of lingers around and gets you in trouble. This is something that helps, so totally.
So yeah, I would run, I mean, I'm not sure if I would always run this in Commander. You know, I feel like a Ghost Quarter is probably better than this because it doesn't take up a spot in your deck.
Maybe,
but
this is an elemental.
Totally up to you.
It works in elemental synergies, and there are tribes for elementals. And in these colors, I mean, can work for Grave Pact. This can go with a whole bunch of Reanimator stuff. So it is a way to kind of take down lands if you truly need to do that. It's an option. Take it for what you want it to be. And this also has been reprinted as well. So this is the resting price after the fall.
Yeah,
so
it used to be a lot more than this.
I think it was like 3rd highest at one point for this set. But either way, that is the 10th most expensive card to put a damper in your wallet. Our next video will be coming out the following week, in which we go ahead and we review Shadowmoor as a whole to say, hey, these are the mechanics. This is how we view it, this is what we found, and this is its rank. So if you're interested to see our viewpoints and see how wrong one of us are, or both of us at the same time, sure check that out.
Well, and you can also check us out on any of our social media platforms. We've got Reddit, Tapped Out, Facebook, Twitter. You can also just hit us up by email at mtgthecardpool@gmail.com. We're all over the place, so don't be shy. Hit us up.
Yeah, if only we had a Zanga.
Oh, God.
But until
then... I
totally
forgot about that.
Yeah, we should get a Zanga. Anyway, I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And we'll see you next time at the Card Pool.